deputy county manager last week, and he said that was being processed. We had to supply a lot of documentation for their records and for them to send to the federal government. So that all that went in last week, and the last bit of it went in this morning. So we should be getting some money there. If Congress acts again, there'll be another round of funding, but that's what we're scheduled to get at this point. And so I just want to let you know that. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Questions of the town manager. Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions?
No, sir, I do not.
Dr. Hobbs?
Yes?
Do you have a question for town manager? Any questions?
No, I do not.
Anyone on the board having a question? That being said, next item is a financial report. You have it in your pamphlet. Are there any questions concerning the financial report? Commissioner Smith?
No, sir, no questions regarding that.
Dr. Hobbs, any questions concerning the financial report?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyone on the board having a question? Okay. That'll bring us down to changes, additions, and deletions to the agenda. Commissioner Smith, do you have any changes?
I make a motion that we, I guess, leave the agenda as is presented.
Very well. Commissioner Smith has made a motion that we leave the agenda be accepted as presented. Dr. Hobbs, are you in favor, or yes or no?
I'm in favor.
Since Commissioner Smith made the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. For consent items, for your consent, is there a motion that we accept the consent items?
I'll make a motion we accept the consent items.
Commissioner Elks has made a motion that we accept the consent items. Commissioner Smith, your vote.
I vote yes.
Dr. Hobbs?
Yes.
Board?
Yes.
Yes.
This is kind of different, but it's working. Okay. It's working. That brings us down to items for discussion. First item is item number 4, and concerning the appointment of Joe Pickett to the advisory board of the Recreation Board. Who's got that? Okay, David.
Thank you. We do have a vacancy on the Recreation Board. Joe Pickett has indicated an interest in serving on this board. If the board so chooses to appoint Mr. Pickett, his term would be a 3-year term, which would expire June 30th, 2023.
You've heard the presentation. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, is there a motion that we appoint Joe Pickett to the Recreation Advisory Board?
I make the motion that we appoint Joe Pickett.
Commissioner Shackelford's made the motion that we appoint Joe Pickett. Commissioner Smith, your vote.
I vote in favor.
Dr. Hobbs?
I vote to select Joe Pickett.
Board. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Joe Pickett has been appointed to the board for a 3-year term. Brings us down to item number 5, consideration of design service of contract for the new fire department headquarter facilities. David, I'll let you introduce Jimmy and go from there.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Members of the board, we'll touch on the presentation in a minute, but I did want to introduce you to the architect who's going to take the lead on this project. Jimmy Edwards, sitting here in the second row. He's with the firm of Davis Kane Architects in Raleigh. Commissioner Smith had met him previously because he was on the selection committee or the advisory committee, and had several discussions with Mr. Edwards so far, and am excited to look forward to working with him. I think he'll do a great job. I don't know if he wants to say anything about himself or the projects that he has done in the past, but I guess if you'd like to hear from Mr.
I would, if the pleasure of the board,
I'd like
because even though I was not on the committee to select, Jimmy Edwards comes highly recommended. And I think it would be a great thing if you would introduce yourself to Farmville and the citizens, because from what I understand, you'll be a familiar face here during this project.
That is correct. My name is Jimmy Edwards. I've spent a lot of time with my grandmother in Greenville, and my grandfather worked both at the Piggly Wiggly and the Food Lion here. And as a child, my grandmother scooped out ice cream in front of the Piggly Wiggly, and I helped her. So I was very excited when I saw this project come up, and I put my heart into it to make sure that we're at least considered to do this very important, crucial asset for your community. And I'm very excited to be part of that. And I hope that you will approve our fee proposal and we can move forward and provide this for your community.
Thank you, sir. If you'll stand there just 1 minute. Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions, Mr. Edwards?
No questions for Mr. Edwards.
Okay. Dr. Hobbs, do you have any questions for Mr. Edwards?
No, I do not.
Anyone from the board like to speak to Mr. Edwards?
Just thank you for being here tonight. It's a touch uncomfortable, I guess, being in a new place on a night like tonight, but thank you.
Thank you, sir. That being said, the question at this point is to approve the proposal from Davis Kane Architects. Is there any questions, comments, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract to Davis Kane.
Commissioner Elks has made a motion that we approve the proposal to Davis Kane. Commissioner Smith, your vote.
I vote in favor of approval.
Dr. Hobbs, your vote.
I vote to approve.
Board, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries 100%. Jimmy, welcome to Farmville. Welcome home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, just one quick comment about just want to draw your attention in the proposal. I'm sure you've noticed, but it does have a brief project description and a scope of services they're going to provide, which are your standard services. We've already hit the ground running. We've had a couple of telephone Zoom conferences, I guess, or computer Zoom conferences with Mr. Edwards and one of his colleagues, I guess. Michelle, I can't remember her name, I'm sorry. I think they're going to do a great job, and there's a proposed schedule in here, and it's very doable. And obviously there's going to be a lot of back and forth with this board and with the fire department to determine the best project possible. So this is the beginning of the process, but I think it'll work out very well.
There you go. Jimmy, the young lady sitting in front of you is probably the most important person in your life now, and that's the lady with the newspaper. We hope you'll keep her informed, and she'll keep the community informed. They do a great job with the standard. Anybody else have anything before I move to item number 6? Item number 6, consideration for imposing a temporary moratorium on the new annual or one-time food truck permits. Justin, you got this one.
Evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Can everybody on the phone hear me okay? Do I need to move forward a little more?
Bert, can you hear Justin?
I can hear pretty good.
Dr. Hobbs, are you able to hear Justin?
Yes, if you could talk a little louder.
Sure. So before you tonight, for consideration, I know we've had quite a few discussions over the last month or so, and I believe I sent an email out to everyone last week. As you know, there have been some concerns regarding food trucks and food vendors over the last couple of months. We've had some citizens and a couple of our local restaurants that have raised some concerns regarding this. So what I want to discuss with the board tonight is whether or not we feel we may need to take some action to potentially amend some of our ordinances as they relate to food vendors and food trucks. So just briefly, I want to kind of sort of catch us up on kind of how we got to this point. And so as you recall, about this time last year, this board, we approved an amendment or an addition to the ordinance that would allow for food trucks to operate in town. And since that time, and I can email this out to you, we've had a couple of people apply for the food truck permits. We haven't had a bum rush of people to get these permits, most of which have actually been for town-sponsored events. But just quickly want to give you an update on that. So in 2019 and then in 2020, we've issued one annual permit each, which, as you recall, an annual permit's $100. That allows you to operate from up to 5 locations in town, provided that you submit proof that you're allowed to operate on that location and it stays 100 feet away from the front entrance of a brick and mortar restaurant in town. We've also issued 7 town-sponsored food truck permits in 2019 and 3 so far in 2020, so for 10 total. But as you recall, with town issued permits, we do not charge a fee for that. So certainly not really a money-making revenue venture for us at this point. But the goal behind this kind of was to allow for sort of a diversity of food options potentially to come to town and set up once a week, twice a week or so. Since we issued this, we did have Chick-fil-A has been coming to town, and they come down typically Tuesdays from 11 until 1. And I just wanted to clarify, because I think there may be just a little bit of confusion. Chick-fil-A actually does not classify as a food truck. They are classifying as a vendor because their food they bring is prepackaged. In order to qualify for a food truck permit, you would have to actually prepare it on the truck. So I believe there's been a little bit of confusion and blurring the lines there between a food truck and a food vendor. So just wanted to try to clarify that a little bit. But some of the concerns that we've talked about, I think a big one has been, how equitable is it to have food trucks or food vendors come to town just, for a couple of hours, at a time each week. They're not paying utilities, not paying taxes, and I think that's kind of some of the big concerns of some of our local businesses. They feel like that, they're not, they're being sort of, burdened a bit with this, where, as Chick-fil-A or somebody could come to town, take their money, go home, really not providing anything to the community other than, just what they're selling. So based off some of the concerns, one of the things that the board could consider tonight at this point, if we wanted to, this may be a good time for us to go back, if the board does have some concerns, to potentially review our food truck ordinances to see if there's any changes that we may want to consider making to the ordinance. We don't have to certainly make any decisions tonight at this point as far as to what changes we want to make. In fact, I think it would be better if we kind of work together over the next couple of months to try to determine what would work best. If food trucks are something that we want to see continue, if so, what changes can we make so that we can make food trucks and food vendors work while also continuing to promote our local businesses here in town. I've got a list of some of our proposed options I think we could look at, and I know Mayor, I've had several discussions with you as well as with Jamin. So some of the options right now, and again, we don't have to make any decisions this evening, but I think based off some of the concerns that we're hearing, we may possibly could look at moving food trucks to particular zoning districts within the town. I know that's something we've worked right now with Chick-fil-A that's been coming each week. I know they're not a food truck, but we have worked with them. They've been great working with us to relocate them from currently setting up in the central business district to moving out to the highway business district, which I actually just spoke with Brad Parker at Chick-fil-A today, and he did notify me that they have settled on a new location in which they'll begin operating next Tuesday. Something else we could look at would be to increase in the radius from the front entrance of a business. As I mentioned, right now, our ordinance states that you have to set up at least 100 feet from the front door of a brick and mortar restaurant. I'm not sure if this board would want to consider increasing that radius. I think 100 feet right now is pretty good based off of where most of our restaurants are at locally in the central business district. That combined with the other regulations we have, not being able to set up on town-owned property, not being able to set up on the streets or rights of way, it really limits the location that food trucks could potentially set up in the central business district. But if that's something that the board would like to explore, we could certainly do that. Additionally, we could always look at potentially increasing the food truck permit fee. I know that's an idea that's been brought up. I've got a form that I went through, did some research last week, looked at the food truck fees across the state between various counties and municipalities. Of the 18 that I was able to find information on last week, the highest permit fee we found was about $500. The lowest was about $25. Typically, you're looking anywhere from about $75 to $100, which is right in line with what we have right now. Currently, as I mentioned, we're charging $100 for an annual permit. But again, if that's something that the board would like to consider adjusting, we could talk about that. And then the final thing that I had mentioned to David, we've been talking about dealing more specifically with the food vendors like a Chick-fil-A, potentially looking at adding some additional language that would capture commercial food vendors. As I mentioned, right now with the way our ordinance is written, we're only capturing food trucks, and again, that's food that's prepared on the truck, not prepackaged food that's coming in like a Chick-fil-A. So doing a little more research, I think what happened in the past when a vendor was coming to town, we were in lieu of a permit fee like we would have with a food truck, we were basically charging the business privilege license. But you know, as you may recall, general statute, our state did away with that fee back in 2015, I believe it was. So we're not able to charge that fee now to vendors when they come in. So I think we certainly need to look at determining or setting some type of permit fee for commercial food vendors such as Chick-fil-A when they come in. So those are just some of my initial recommendations. But again, I think some of the discussion we had, what might be beneficial is in the time being while we discuss what options we want to look at, what next steps we want to take with this, it may be best at this time, given some of the concerns around town, to possibly put a brief moratorium on food trucks until we can get this straightened out. So just wanted to bring these recommendations to you tonight. Like I said, I know we've had several discussions over the last couple of weeks on this, and so these are some of the potential solutions we can look at. Just want to make you aware of those this evening.
Thank you, Justin. It's been a lot of conversation about this, been a lot of meetings and a lot of research, and I thank you for that. Commissioner Smith, any questions of Justin?
No question. I couldn't quite understand everything you said, but I got the main gist of everything.
Okay. Dr. Hobbs, any questions of Justin?
I don't have any questions, but I have a comment, and I want to just thank you for addressing and acknowledging this issue for Farmville and all the new businesses, because I do believe that we need to provide opportunities for them to provide an environment that they have to. After all, they invested a lot of money starting a new business in Farmville, and they didn't anticipate doing so just ahead of a pandemic. So I'm just very pleased that we are addressing this issue, and that all those businesses that started business would know that we are behind them.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone on the board like to make a comment? Jamin, Brenda, Dave, anybody?
I also appreciate Justin working on this. I've been somewhat vocal about it. And as we have this conversation, and Alma brings up the point she just made, as you consider how to act going in the next 3 months or evaluating what we should do, I would encourage you to think about how we treat vendors of all sorts, not just food vendors. I wouldn't want, in the same way we don't want an outside food vendor competing with our brick and mortar food, I wouldn't want, for example, a outside furniture vendor or a traveling pharmaceutical salesperson or something like that to set up with our local drug dealers. We want to respect the local businesses at any chance we, all the time. So drug dealer was probably a bad choice for us. I realize that, but
It lightened the moment. Thank you.
but anyway, thank you for your work.
Anyone else? Oh, Brenda, go ahead.
I too would like to see a variety of suggestions, because we want to take care of our restaurants that are here, because we definitely want them to stay, because we need them and we need the variety. I also want, if these people are wanting to eventually come here full time to put in a business, I want us to have the steps set up for that as well, so that we can do that. I just want us to be fair to everybody, particularly our people that are already in place, that have invested so much in Farmville, to do that. And so I realize that there are a couple times that we need food vendors to come in, like at the ball field or like at the disc golf. But I also would like to see some communication, like for example, if there's a big disc golf tournament going on at the disc golf field 2 weeks from Saturday, that somebody make contact with the restaurant across the street to see if they'd like to be open for longer times. Maybe we could work on something like that too with Parks and Rec to see if we could coordinate something with them. And give them that opportunity, instead of them having to leave disc golf to go and get something to eat, that there be somewhere they could just walk right across the street and get a good meal. So
Right.
I think we need to look at all of that.
Right, yeah, and not to speak for Isaiah, but I know me and him, we had a discussion, about this very topic last week, because I know they did have the big event, I believe, this past weekend, and I believe he was going to reach out to the barbecue restaurant to see, but yeah, we have talked about that kind of coordination moving forward, especially for events down there. My understanding, I believe they did have a lunch break for the tournament this past weekend, but I know there's some events he mentioned that they don't have time for a lunch break, so it's, nice to have something on site. So that's certainly something that we'll continue to coordinate with Parks and Rec on, so that we're able to provide that service when needed.
Anybody else?
Oh, they did? Great.
Anybody else?
That's great.
Seeing no more discussion, is there a motion about issuing a moratorium on the new annual or the one-time food truck permits for 3 months?
I'll make a motion, we issue a moratorium on, did you propose a time for 3-month
3 month.
moratorium on new annual one-time food truck or food vendor permits?
Okay. Any discussion? The motion by Commissioner Dixon that we issued a moratorium for 3 months. Any discussion? Commissioner Smith, anything you want to add at this point?
No, sir.
Okay. Dr. Hobbs, anything to add at this point?
No.
Anyone from the board having a comment? Seeing none. Commissioner Smith, your vote.
I vote absolutely in favor of the moratorium.
Thank you. Dr. Hobbs, your vote.
I vote in favor of the moratorium.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimous. Issued moratorium for 90 days. Thank you, Justin. That brings us down to citizen comments. This is where anything you've seen here, heard here, and you'd like to make a comment on, this is your opportunity. Anyone? Anyone wanting to make a comment? Seeing none, Dr. Hobbs, I will go to you for closing comments, please.
But I just want to thank everyone for all that you're continuously doing to support Farmville and the citizens in this incredible challenging time. And I just wish everyone to continue to stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, ma'am. You're very kind. Commissioner Smith, any final words?
No, sir, I think it's a good meeting. I think we made some good decisions tonight, and I'm sorry that I cannot be there in person.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Shack? Commissioner Elks?
First of all, Bert, I'd like to extend my sympathy to your family on the loss of your mother last week. I know that was a very trying time for your family. And we've all been thinking about you and had you in prayer. I'm just very grateful for the town of Farmville employees and the town of Farmville citizens. And we may not have hometown Halloween, but we're going to figure something out. Well, we're actually going to do just plain old trick-or-treating if anybody wants to participate. And we've asked that anybody that is participating to let me know, and we're going to try to come up with a map and addresses so that people will know where to go instead of just having to ride all over town. So we're working on that. We're trying to come up with an idea for Christmas to make something special going on too, but that's right now, we haven't quite decided about that.
Thank you. Commissioner Dixon?
Sometimes when you're commissioner or mayor, I've never been mayor, but sometimes when you're elected official, you just, in general, you feel a great appreciation for the staff and just feel like the staff is just clicking. And this is one of those times. I feel like everybody who works for the town of Farmville right now is just an A+, and I feel like I hear that from around the community now, and just want to compliment those guys and girls for doing such a good job.
Thank you, sir. I think our hearts and prayers all go out to Bert and his family, the loss of his mom, a wonderful lady. I knew her since Bert and I were in first grade, a wonderful lady, and she will be missed. A few things. I am amazed. Visitors are amazed. Paul, what you're doing with taking them down and putting them up, what you're doing, keep on doing it. I do appreciate it, and what they're doing out at Doubtons Cove is a big thing, and I thank you for that. Donna, want to thank you and the newspaper for the Farmville magazine. Incredible. Thank you for that, and I hope everybody's had an opportunity to read that, and thank you for the kind words that we get here. And Jeffrey, Major Spencer, just so you'll know, I know everybody up here is jumping up and down about hometown Halloween and excited about Halloween, and I too am excited about Halloween, but just so you'll know, Halloween is on the 31st, a Saturday night, and there's a full moon, just so you'll know. Anybody having anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Jack made a motion to adjourn. All in favor say aye. I got them all. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. David, thank you for a great meeting agenda. Thank you. Chris, thank you too.